from Kashish, your host for today's webinar and a member of Core HRIR group. I hope every one of you is doing very well today. And we're very delighted to have you as a part of webinar and a member of Core HRIR group. I hope every one of you. As a part of our group, we would like to welcome you and hope your learning journey has been smooth with us. We're trying to make it fantastic for you and need your continuous support and enthusiasm as we move ahead. So today's topic is Behavior and Aptitude Scores for Smart and Fast Hiring with Subhashini Tripathi. And this is our seventh webinar in the series of Learning Weekend Initiative. So please join me in welcoming Subhashini on this platform. Welcome, Subhashini.
Oh, thank you so much, Kashish. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I'm a proponent of analytics, and I've had the pleasure of working in the space of human resource analytics for companies like Citibank, Mindtree, Cisco, Honeywell, etc. And today I do hope that this session is going to be a value add to you. Do reach out to me even after the session and we can continue our discussions.
Thank you, Subhashini. Thank you for the warm welcome extended to our group members. So I would go ahead and just talk a bit about the group before we start the webinar. And that should not take more than 5 minutes. So this group started in January 2017 with an intent to build a single platform for HR professionals and leaders to share knowledge, experience, expertise, connect with each other, and help each other to find solutions or case studies. And the vision with which this group was formed was to be one single internationally renowned platform, again, for sharing, learning, and growing together for the HR fraternity. And in the same vision, we have group members from various Indian companies, as well as some companies, some multinational companies which are based overseas or global companies. So the group essentially consists of more than 450 HR experts, leaders, as well as CHROs from different parts of the world. While the LinkedIn membership has crossed 1,000, we're still trying to grow our WhatsApp membership to further, so that we go ahead and we're able to match the vision of what we started in the past. So we have come up with various initiatives, which is WhatsApp group and Chai Buddy, which is our HR conclave initiative. We have Learning Weekend, we have Shining HR Award, and Job Board. So with respect to WhatsApp group, it is a highly interactive platform with active conversations around latest compliances, labor laws, HR technologies, real case studies and scenarios, solution and high octane discussions. Chai Buddy is our HR conclave or an HR summit kind of an initiative where we invite speakers and leaders from industry to conduct interactive sessions and share their expertise on different interesting topics as well as new concepts. It is conducted every alternate month. So you can expect the next session to be within this month, say sometime towards the end of it, and we'll keep you posted on the progress. Learning Weekend, as most of you might be aware, is the webinar series, the one that we're doing right now. Here we try and connect you with the thought leaders of the corporate world, mainly the HR function, but certainly those who have valuable experience, unbeatable expertise, and absolute command in the area they operate in. And this is conducted every fortnight. Shining HR Award is an initiative which we came up last time. It is a platform when we conducted our Chai Buddy series or Chai Buddy Summit. It is a platform for recognizing commendable achievers, the idea powerhouses, especially the young talent in the HR fraternity. And this award category is for professionals with less than 10 years experience. And it is open up for participation every 6 months. We are in the process of coming up with with job board. So we intend this to make it an avenue where we'll be collaborating with various executive search firms and recruitment firms to bring in job opportunities flowing in from different parts of the world. So I would like to, on behalf of the core HRIR group, I would request you to spread the word about us and encourage your colleagues and friends to join us. Right. So going ahead with today's topic, which is behavior and aptitude scores for smart and fast hiring, wherein I already introduced Subhashini Tripathi. I would like to say a few words about her expertise and experience area. Subhashini, as she said, she has about 15 years of experience. She is an analytics professional and a data science enthusiast. So she's currently the co-founder and the CEO for Pexetics. She's also the chief data scientist with the same organization. Pexetics is essentially an analytics firm specializing in HR analytics. They have been helping organization understand how analytics or understanding various aspects of data science, how can these aspects help the organizations grow, understand the problem areas, and have better processes and better outcomes. So, Subhashini has worked with companies like G Countrywide, G Money, Standard Chartered Bank, as she said. She also worked with Tata Motors Finance and Citibank with their GDM arm. She expertises in HR analytics, which also includes data warehousing and reporting. Her expertise mostly throughout her entire career has been into risk and business analytics, which has given her a whole new dimension, which she'll of course share with us in due course of time. So a very rich dimension which she has gathered, a very rich knowledge that she has gathered in her vast experience of 15 years in the area. So she's also the author of the book Learning Business Analytics in 6 Steps Using SAS and R. And if you want to know more about the organization or learn more about what Suhasini has been helping organizations with, please do visit pexetics.com, which is PEXITICS.com. Just few sentences about myself. I have 14 years of experience working with both startups as well as well-established firms. I worked through the entire bandwidth of the HR function, policies, process formulation, implementation. We talk about change management, succession planning, a bit of HR analytics, and I'm sure I'll learn a lot from Subhashini today. HRIS implementation. My domains have mostly been IT, ITES, and professional services. The companies that I worked with have been Bhavna Corporation, Dimension Indian Networks, One Business Consulting, and so on and so forth. So before we really go ahead and hit on the topic, I would like to give a very brief introduction as to, for the benefit of the attendees, as to what today's discussion is going to be around. So we all understand that hiring is the most important sub-function of HR as well as the organization. So if you hire someone who doesn't have the right skills for a position, or perhaps who isn't good fit with the corporate culture, maybe both, maybe one of them, but they would often end up being replaced. So then in that case, as an HR, you need to fill the position again, impacting not only the turnover costs, but also duplicating your work, isn't it? So to make better hiring decisions and avoiding high job turnover rates, organizations often use behavior and aptitude tests. The goal is to get the right people with the right skills in the right jobs and the right time. Up till now, the traditional processes that we have seen have been really very subjective. So as per what I have seen is that hiring managers use their gut feelings, observations, judgments, and life experiences to evaluate candidates. I'm sure most of you would agree to it. So, can you be more scientific about evaluating people? And this is what we are here for, wait for to understand. Apart from that, behavioral or psychological testing offers a way to go beyond the subjective and find a more objective way to assess someone's personal attributes. This is where HR analytics actually comes to the rescue and helps you make the optimal hiring decision. Increasingly, more and more companies are realizing that analytics has the potential to greatly improve their talent acquisition processes, as well as operations, of course. But yes, more importantly, the top line and the businesses overall. So let's hear it from the expert. Over to you, Subhashini.
Thank you very much, Kashish. You've been very, very sweet about the introduction. Okay, guys, let's hit on the topic. We're here to discuss hiring and, how it works, right? At the moment somebody says you're hired, you really mean you're hired mind, body, and soul, right? You were supposed to be completely there for your job. Okay. This year is going to be very good. The Indian Skill Report has reported that the hiring will grow at about 10 to 15% on the back of GDP growth. So we are really looking at more hiring activities, more resumes, more interviews, more vendors, more metrics and reporting around hiring. Okay. So how does that sound to you? Do you think that's good? Yes, I'm kicked. I'm very, very happy to see this upswing come in. But it has, how it is. It's like a chain effect. Hiring goes up, hiring. But if the quality of hiring is not so good, it leads to an increment in L&D spends. You need the batch that you hire in. You need to ensure that their skills training goes on, which could be technical or non-technical skills. You need to invest in onboarding and new hire orientation so that they can fit into the organization and start working. You need to ensure that they are ingrained with the culture and the growth within the organization so that they do a good job and do not stand out like a sore thumb. Now, interestingly, 6 out of 10 IT services organizations, so we're not even talking about every organization, specifically IT services organizations, they invest on reskilling and cross skilling on digital skills. How many of us feel we have digital skills? I think most of us, right? But even they find that basic digital skills, they have to really invest in reskilling and cross skilling to manage the talent supply gap, right? I'm sure all of us have been in positions when somebody is coming and you feel that, oh, you don't even know this? Oh, really? But you're an engineer or you're a MBA. Okay. The other part, which if the hiring is not so well done, which gets affected is the engagement. So once the person hiring is the only point of decision, really, post that, most of the time it's more about people management and engagement management, so that the employee could be performing at his or her highest productivity. So that the attrition is of the people that you do not mind losing, the ones you want to retain don't leave you, so that you have growth in business which is in line with all the planning, right? So engagement is definitely something which gets impacted if there is inefficiency in hiring. Then the growth itself, there is the employee who wants professional growth. He is aiming at IJPs, he is aiming at career counseling and training and development to make him achieve his life goals. There is succession planning, objective and cultural. So that means that you are looking at people who come from a particular skill sequence. You're also looking at moving people who are doing well at their roles to the next level, which would involve in indoctrinating them with a certain culture which is acceptable for senior management. So net, what I'm trying to say is everything starts at hiring.
Yeah? Very true, Subhashini. That's really the core, the the core
That's
of
the
it.
one,
Yes.
yeah, that's the one function where which is like a dam, gate. You know, that's the one place where you can actually take a decision to accept somebody within the fold or not. And post that, virtually all decisions would be about how to manage what you have. Okay. So does this lead us to a lot of responsibility? Stress, which comes with responsibility?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think all of it. Yes.
Yes, yes. I think that's what we're trying to say. We're saying yes, the GDP is growing, hiring is going to grow, and we who are in the space of hiring are going to see significantly high stress. Okay. Now, what does an organization really want? What do we want when we go out to hire? I'm sure you've seen and heard about these Spartans, right? The band of 300 who stood up against a million people and actually vanquished them. Okay. Now this is the type of people we need, right? Those super performers, those amazing people who can take the organization from point A to point B, you know, and do everything that we aim the organization should do.
Absolutely. And I think these Spartans are the ones which end up influencing the average performers and thereby increasing the entire potential of the organization.
Absolutely. They also help to convert the engagement factor, So when the fence sitters, who are the majority or in your engagement survey, when they meet these super performers, the ones who are very bullish about the company, about the roles, who are doing well, who, sort of can also perhaps guide them on how to do well within that cultural paradigm. These are the guys who really influence even those fence sitters. Now, recruitment is as old as civilization. I think all of us in recruitment know that, but this is just to reiterate. So, really, when we're talking about it, how old are we talking about? So, we are saying that the first instant of a resume was actually found on rock and wooden tablets in ancient Rome. Can you imagine? China had imperial exams, okay, which were a way of recruiting civil services candidates during the Han Dynasty, which was 1500 before Christ. Okay, they call it BCE now, before Christ era, Christian era. Now, this is where the Britishers saw it and they carried it back to the United States. At that point, the colonization of America was happening. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so when did the recruitment agencies come into being? Now that's the next question. Interestingly, World War II was when the recruitment agencies came in. There was a cry in the US saying that we need everyone to become a soldier and come in. And you had recruitment agencies whose business was to get these guys enlisted into the armies. Okay, and then what happened? The war ended and the veterans came home. Now, this you had this whole pool of skilled manpower in the United States, and you had industries. That's when the industrial revolution, etc., was happening. So, recruitment agencies then became a conduit between this skilled manpower, which was just back from war, and the industries. Now, late 1970s and 1980s, we saw the advent of databases and online storage. And by 1990s, the application tracking system, the ATS, had become a common tool. Okay. So we are saying that really the real revolution of technology per se had happened perhaps 30 years back. Okay, so what has happened in the subsequent 30 years? Of course, one thing is that technology has penetrated. So what was available in America, etc., has come down to virtually everywhere in the world. But what has really happened is this, human intelligence and artificial intelligence have started coming together. Machine learning has started coming together to give us something called intelligence amplification. I am sure all of you know what amplification is, right? It's the large burst of sound. So a small sound gets amplified into a large one, so it's a magnification, right? So what we are saying is when human intelligence combines with computer learning, what we get is intelligence amplification. Okay. Any questions still here that we have?
I think the questions that we certainly have questions, but those might be slightly more relevant, going a little forward.
Okay, sure, Kashish. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we had a scientist. His name was Licklider. Yes, like most American who did great things. He was associated with MIT. He was also associated with IBM, and he said that computers would not end up mimicking human intelligence. Computers would complement human intelligence. So men would still set the goals, they would still formulate the hypothesis, they would still determine the criteria and perform the evaluations. What computing machines would do? They would do the routine task. Okay, they would prepare the data for insights and decisions, right? So this
Yeah.
would be a symbiotic partnership. It would not be a predatory partnership. Okay, I think most of the movies show artificial intelligence will come and overtake the world. No. Okay.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of discussions, high octane discussions, have been happening around the world. Predicting that artificial intelligence is ultimately going to overtake, and then there have been different versions of different opinions floating around by different HR stalwarts. So I think that would put to rest some of the dilemma or some of the confusion that is going on in the minds of the HR professionals. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at the SHRM conference in Hyderabad, and there the Amazon team had put out a very good discussion where they said, "Is it is about how we're going to utilize the intelligence that come out of systems rather than which system we're going to follow." Yeah, so that's what I think we have to understand. These systems are all built here for our help. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does this help? What we are talking about is nothing new. We've had information from various sources to answer some basic questions at the point of hiring. We've had it for quite some time. We've had skill tests. We've had psychometric tests and behavior tests. We've had aptitude tests. We have had, uh, the percentage of JD which gets fulfilled by a particular candidate's resume. We have, if you look at it in terms of machine learning, you use parsing softwares to get this information out of, resumes. So what are we really talking about? Like, what is that next step? What's so great that we're talking about? And I think the great thing that we're talking about is scores. How are we going to standardize the measurement of outcomes across all these 4, 5 inputs so that we can consistently make good decisions, right?
Very true.
And
Yeah.
here, yeah, and let me tell you this, that it has been a proven fact that when you look at a one-to-one data point, human intelligence often scores better than computer intelligence. But when you look at multiple paradigms together, that's when computers perhaps make better sense. They can start looking at it in a much more holistic manner, much more unbiased manner than we humans can. Okay, very much standardized than we humans can, because all of us have our bad days, right? All of us are fatigued sometimes, we are ill sometimes. So what we're talking about is algorithms. These are going to amalgamate each of these sections of information to give an overall score. And these algorithms are not going to be consistent. They're going to change by job type. So if that person is measured for a subject matter expert role, that algorithm will take that into cognizance. And when he is measured for a team manager role, they will change the equation to ensure that the team management factors are factored in a larger measure. Or when the person moves to a business leader role, will be measured in a different combination of these attributes. That's exactly what we do, right? Sometimes we look at resumes and say he won't fit here, but I think he could fit that role, right?
So, before we go forward, I think we have some related questions that have come up. So,
Okay.
this question is from Anil Sharma, who's asking: do we need to map personality to know the behavior, and what tools would you suggest for it?
Okay, great. See, okay. So we started off when measurement started off for behavior. Yes, personality was mapped to behavior. Okay, but I think increasingly the world has understood, and Brigmeyers themselves say that their assessments, they have about 30 to 35% relevance to jobs. So people have understood that we are not here to measure if you're a Ram or a Buddha, or are you a Hitler. We're not here to measure that. We are here to measure, are you going to do well as a sales manager, or are you going to do well as a operations head, or are you going to do better as a subject matter expert in say analytics, right? So
Mhm.
I think we have moved beyond measurement of a complete personality to measuring work related behaviors. Okay, because people change over a period of time. People change, and their experiences, their evolution starts showing up in their behavior. You will notice, I'm sure, that people who come from certain backgrounds like banking, we just seem to be more should we say more risk averse, in the sense that we trust processes more, perhaps. We're more used to being told what to do, and we just do it because that's the process set. In certain other places, they'd say that's very constraining. But if you've been in banking for 10 years, you have learned to, swallow your pride and say, okay, fine, if that's what needs to get done, I'll do it that way.
Very true, very true.
So you will know a person when they come from a creative field. So a person from an ad agency or etc. You would look at them and you might say that, okay, this person's come from a slightly, creative type of a job.
Very well. That's really, I think, what needs to be done. I'm sure Anil Sharma would have his queries rested now. We have two more questions, and I'll see if we can actually just combine both of them.
Okay.
So, Mandar Gosavi, the person is asking, I'm not sure whether the person is a he or a she, it doesn't indicate by the name, but how aptitude tests can help in bulk hiring of the employees who are contractual employees. I mean, so another question is of the same nature, but for a general set of hiring, maybe for permanent employees. So, how aptitude test can help in bulk hiring of the employees who are both contractual as well as permanent employees, and how to design the tool for evaluating the candidates for mass hirings.
Great.
So
So
test and aptitude, yeah.
absolutely. So, I always suggest that, see, aptitude tests. I'm sure if you have been through my profile, you would know that we have a product in this space which is called PEXI score, People Excellence Indicator Score. Okay. And how this works is 5 attributes of aptitude are measured there. So there's numeracy, logical reasoning, situational judgment, comprehension, and verbal communication. Now, what happens is aptitude tests, I mean, aptitude attributes are pretty much the same. But what is seen in, the cluster of, say, high-ranking attributes seen in a marketing role versus an analytics role would be very different. An analytics guy would most probably be high on numeracy and logical thinking, could be lower on communication. A salesperson could be very high, he would most likely be higher on communication and situational judgment. Okay. Might be lower on numeracy and perhaps a bit lower on logical thinking. Okay. So you will come to the clusters of attributes, for different roles and how they play up. Okay. So that's how actually the analytics process would work. And how you would do it is, I would suggest, in this is how it's generally done. You would take 30 people in a similar role and run them through the aptitude tool that you are using. Okay, for 30 people who have done well in your organization. Okay, and then you would want to see that all the new hires, all the new applicants, do they mimic the type of scores that seem to come out of these 30? Yeah. And therefore you would like to pick up people who look rather similar to these 30, because these attributes in the ratio that you have come up with of people who do well in your organization is the winning combination for your organization for that particular role? I hope this answers the question.
Yes, it does. It does. Thank you so much indeed. We can proceed further, and then if there are any relevant questions, I'll probably speak up again.
Okay, okay, done, Kashish.
Thank
So,
you.
when you look at a job, here there's just, the perfect candidate has been picked out for one job. Here, the perfect candidate for this particular job that I'm describing needs to be tactical. That 60% goes to tact. Okay, it's a customer service oriented customer interaction job. Has to be operational, so she should not skip any of the processes that has been laid down. You know, have has to have facilitation, so she should be creative negotiation, but only to the tune of 10%. Has to have some strategic understanding, but even that has to be just to the tune of 10%. So what type of a job am I looking at? I'm really looking at what a customer service or customer interaction or irate customer interaction type of job, where there are some specific processes in my organization to handle this job. Do you think that this combination of how much tact versus operational versus facilitation versus strategic would change by the job levels in the organization as well as by the departments in the organization?
Yes, indeed. It can never be the same, as per my understanding. It can never be the same percentage for every level or role, for that matter.
Absolutely. So just like two jobs perhaps are not the same, our decision for who should be picked up for these jobs will also not be the same. Now, what is our choice based on? It's based on our memory, okay, and the resources that we have, and how else do we make our choice by using our rationality, by not being by using our empirical evidence, and perhaps sometimes being ambiguous because of our bias, right? What is our bias really? It's our conception of something, which is driven by our experience or our inexperience, because sometimes we've never seen something like that before. So maybe somebody had never seen analytics before. My mother has never seen analytics before. So whenever she introduces me to her colleagues, she was a professor of history, she says, my daughter teaches maths, or my daughter works in maths. For her,
Yeah,
that's what I'm doing. Right. So it is
absolutely.
perhaps inexperience. This type of a job role did not exist when she was working. Okay. It could be a bias could come out of fatigue. We all have so much of stress. We really can't give everyone an opportunity. I mean, if it doesn't fit into the few things that seem to make sense or have made sense till now, we'll just let it be. We have fatigue because of work, and we could have fear of censor. Can I really afford to be wrong? Will my boss take it as an experiment?
Hmm.
See, if somebody is making a decision, and I always like analytics for that, I think it makes people um, perhaps more accommodating, and if somebody has made 9 right decisions and 1 bad decision, should we really not remember that? Should we remember that 1 bad decision and question every subsequent decision, or should we believe that this person at least has a 90% chance of being true, of being correct? So I think that is something which a lot of us do not have in our organization. One or two things which we may not have performed optimally is what gets highlighted. Okay. So all
Right.
of this, yeah.
So, Bhashini, we have few questions pertaining to what we just discussed.
Okay.
And the question is from Amit Kalra. And he
Okay.
asks how to identify that which technique or assessment will give exact or appropriate results about a candidate. So the question is as per me a little unclear, but whatever
Okay.
you feel is the person trying to ask,
Yeah,
if
sure.
you could please, yes.
Yeah. So, there is no one way. Okay. It's just that the way that you might prefer a Hyundai car, I prefer a Maruti car, somebody else prefers a Skoda, right? Each of
Mhm.
us have our own preferences, but it is my belief that it is a good thing to test out a few of these and see which of them seems to work for your organization. Again, testing is a very big part of it. I think it's always better to run a test on a small sample of people, see how the test, because it's not only the efficacy of the test, it's also the efficacy of the UI, it's also the experience your candidates have on the system. Because finally, a pre-hiring assessment is their first interaction with your organization, right? So I
Yes.
think all of this needs to be considered when you are deciding on what type of test actually makes sense for your organization. You might, nowadays, the way I see it, most organizations who use assessments have started using a couple of vendors. Okay. And they use, perhaps sometimes for mid management and junior management, they use certain vendors, they use for senior management, they use certain vendors. So you might decide to segment, for your tech hiring you might use a particular vendor. So you might decide to see what fits where.
Yeah, and perhaps benchmarking or just consulting your HR peers in other organizations might just give some more clues.
And might give you comfort
Yeah.
also, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it gives you comfort if you know that, okay, fine, this has worked well in a similar organization, it will work well, perhaps it has a larger probability of working well in my organization.
Very
Yeah.
true. Another question in the same context is from Vikas Rai Bhatnagar.
Yes,
And he says, is there an instrument to assess competencies?
absolutely.
So,
There are instruments to assess competencies. Again, so in at Pexi Score, we have 5 reports which come out. There are 4 pillars of testing. There is the first is, of course, a JD to resume match, which is not a testing pillar. Then you have a behavior testing, motivation of work testing, aptitude testing, and skill testing. You could decide not to do the skill test. Sometimes people say, I'm not really looking at skill testing, especially for certain types of roles. Okay. Now, competency reports come out of these types of tests and help you figure out how the fitment will lie of that particular person in your organization. Because finally it's a game of fitment. How comfortable is that person going to be in performing the duties? In competency, what you're really looking at is, does he have the ability to perform the duties that are going to be laid out to him, right?
right. We can go on to the next element in the flow of the video.
Okay, great.
Thank you
Uh,
so much.
Okay, absolutely. So I'm going to take you through a case study. Okay, I'm skipping the analytics part of it. If any of you is interested to see how the data looks and how you could come up with such outcomes, please reach out to me offline. My mail ID remains subhashini@pexitics, People Excellence Indicator Analytics. So pexitics.com. Yeah. On LinkedIn, you'll find me at Subhashni Tripathi. Now, intelligence amplification in hiring. Let's see a case study here. So we had worked with an aeronautics major, yeah, and they had a huge process for fresher hiring. They started off by checking gate scores, and then they used to do 5 days of interviews. There used to be an interview camp in a certain sense, where the 20 top management people used to sit and interview every candidate so that there was no mistake. Because, being the type of field that we were looking at, and they used to have at one sets of candidates of nearly 200 people. Okay, so obviously this recruitment drives that they used to conduct twice a year was quite twice or sometimes thrice a year, because sometimes they couldn't fill up their seats, was quite intensive. Okay. Now, why did they need such experienced people to spend 5 days of their time, putting the company virtually to a, full stop as for, decisions to be taken, because all the senior management is sitting through these selection process. Why did this seem to happen? Okay, because the first thing was that, see, these guys when they came in were basically, I mean, they were all were engineers. That's how they had gate scores. But all of them were recruited for three functions. Either they could be put on the shop floor in the manufacturing unit, or they could be put for operations, or they could be put for customer handling. These were the three segments into which these guys were put. Okay, but the JDs out there were non-parameterized for them. Okay, there was a description in terms of the job roles, but there was no parameterization saying that I'm looking for higher negotiation skills here, I'm looking for higher leadership skills here, and I'm looking for higher team management skills here. So there was no parameterization of JDs in terms of the attributes that were required. Okay, there was also no access of the current selection panel to earlier records. So what had happened in the years earlier, those guys who had been recruited, on the basis of whatever had been the selection criteria, how had they really performed on the job? What was the level of success? What was the level of attrition for these hires? There was also no correlation of selections to success on jobs of the previous batches. Right? How did they get graded? Who are the people who got graded better than the others in their performance reviews? Were there any common criteria which could have been seen at the point of interview itself? So the way these guys ran it, they called us and told us, see, you run your process of creating the PEXI score parallel to our selection process for one batch. Okay, because we do not want that there should be a, it's a new concept, and they don't know if it would turn out well or not. We said, okay, fine. So this is what happened really. When you looked at the people who were selected, which is the blue line, and the ones who had succeeded, you saw that, it wasn't that everybody who had higher gate score than the previous guy was more likely to get success, right? You can see these lines are intertwined. Yes, after a certain gate score, so above 850 gate score, yes, you can see that you have a much higher percentage of people who had success, but below this, you can see there's no clear setting. Yeah? But when the PEXI score was calculated, the behavior plus the aptitude plus the education in the equation, was calculated. Here you can see that this is a perfect outcome of a logistic equation. That means that as your scores will grow up, the percentage of people in those bands that you recruit goes up. Can you see this? It's unambiguous that yes, people who fit more, because what does PEXI score tell you? It tells you the fitment, not the score in gate being higher or behavior being higher or aptitude being higher. It says, see, if I'm looking for a shop floor person, for me, for the shop floor position, it is better that he has certain aptitude scores, certain behavior scores, and certain gate scores. Okay. Subsequently, if we are looking at him from the point of customer service, I need this equation to be slightly different. Okay. So this will, I think So here you could see this company, what they did is they created a cutoff PEXI score. Okay. For the next set of hiring, they made a mandate that they are going to look at only those people who get a PEXI score of greater than 550. Okay. Now, what happened at the score point of 550, at least 60% of the people in that band gets hired. Okay. So the efficiency of hiring suddenly went up. The efficiency of hiring, you can see at a 441 to 500 is only about 35% of the people get hired. That means you were rejecting 65 out and accepting only 35 people in this band. But at the band beyond 550, you were accepting 60 and rejecting only 30. So you were definitely improving the efficiency of your process.
Right. So the attendees are more keen to know about other various analytical uh, tools, or I mean, when I say tools, I mean, what are the parameters? What are the different analytical parameters that they should look at, being the talent acquisition experts?
Okay, so you should, I think, if we should look at the ideal combination, okay, of scores that work for you. We created the PEXI score. The PEXI score is nothing but a combination of behavior, aptitude, skills, and JD resume match percentage. Okay, what is this score for your organization? So if you are in IBM, what is your IBM hiring score? Okay, for different jobs. Now if we could do that type of a project for IBM, we would say that okay, this is the type of combination which works well for your operational unit, this works for your technical unit, this works for your sales guys, right? So what we are saying is we need to figure out the parameters which are correlated to success in your organization. And this is very simply done. There's no rocket science. Look at whichever tool that you are looking at for assessment, whichever it is. Okay. Run a correlation with parameters of success. So if you have screened 100 candidates and accepted in your interview 20, okay,
Mhm.
what you have to do is you should run a correlation to see which were those variables. Okay, whatever is the variables that you capture today. Suppose your organization just does a skill test, right? So go with that. If your organization just does a maybe an aptitude test, go with that. Find out that in that aptitude test, what are the, as I said, we do 5 aptitudes, you could be doing 3. You could just do English language proficiency, numeracy, and logical reasoning. Find out what is that combination of these 3 which works for your operations unit by using a technique which is called correlation. And the best part today is that this is available on Excel. You do not need any advanced tools. In Excel, you have the analysis tool pack, and using that itself, you can come up with the combination of factors which exist for your different units, which spell success for your different units. How many of you have been in a point where somebody you recruited for operations wasn't doing well, but once you moved him to, say, customer support, he started doing very well? Have you come across such situations? Somebody who
Um,
didn't do well in your organization because culture was not a fit, okay, went to a different organization and became a VP. He has been sticking around there for 10 years, has done exceedingly well for himself or herself. I'm sure each one of us has seen people like this, right? So we
um,
just need, yeah, Kashish, tell me.
Yeah, so I think some of us would certainly have, as you said. What the attendees are also trying to understand is, apart from, so we've spoken about behavioral and aptitude scores. So when we talk about aptitude scores, are we also talking about scoring the interviews? Because not every organization would have an aptitude test for almost every level that that they're hiring for. So,
Yeah,
do the
so
organi-
Kashish, I'm sorry to butt in, but
no,
I
no,
will tell you that the starting, that even is an aptitude going to give me something out of it. You have to test that premise. You have to take 30 people who are doing well in your organization and look, and 30 who are not doing so well, and you've got to run the aptitude for them and see that does it make a difference. See, those people are your employees, right? They're already onboarded on your system. You can tell them that this is an experiment we're running, or this is something which we're doing as a part of a study or whatever, so that they do not panic that why are we being put through this or something like that. But I think that is the first point that you've got to do. I can quote to you how we've done it with a couple of organizations. It's just like that. We start off by looking at some of their people and telling them that, we're doing a study, we want you to, just for evaluating a tool, we want you to give a feedback on the tool, and we want you to go through the test. They go through the test and they give a UI UX feedback, was it good, was it not realizing that at the back end we're also trying to see that, is it actually predicting success in my organization? Yeah. It's like test driving a car.
Yes, got it.
Yeah. I can show you, Kashish, at the end of this, perhaps, if you put the camera on me, I'll toggle and show you a report where you can see the components which go into the back end of all these types of assessment tools, like, and again, I'm talking about my product because I've made the product, I know how it works, etc. When we are looking at behavior, we are looking at 15 parameters. Okay. For everybody, these 15 parameters get assessed. But some of these parameters do not become part of the score for if we are considering that person for a operational role. Like we have vision approach. Vision approach is not required for an operational, starting person, right? If I'm looking at a Java coder, I don't need to know his vision approach, perhaps, for that role. Okay.
Yeah.
Conversely, I do look at his ability to be consistently operational. Okay. However, when I start looking at a senior hire, that's not the main thing. There, I'm really looking at his team management, team, vision approach, negotiation skills, conflict handling. So what happens is that these tools will measure across a whole set of variables.
I understood. Yes.
Yeah. Now, like in this case, what happened? The selection panel, which used to sit 5 times for 5 days, at least 2 to 3 times in a year, leading to a substantial loss of decisioning capacity for those days, because all the senior management was sitting there. It was brought down to only 2 days. Okay. The widening of the net of engineering colleges was possible because, incidentally, this aeronautical major's biggest office is here in Bangalore, and they used to often look mostly for southbound candidates, and they were able to now take it to because this was an automated online cloud-based system. They could just now take it to virtually everywhere in India. So they really could improve the reach that they had because of this automation, and because they were subsequently, because of the score, because they were pretty sure that they would hire, there's a very high probability they would hire this candidate. Sometimes they used to actually pay, if somebody had to fly in from Assam, etc., they could pay for the transportation cost. Without this, earlier they used to just give train tickets. So actually they started investing in better experience of the candidate. Yes, absolutely, because it was a smaller group and you knew that the probability that I will choose from this is very high, wastage is very low.
Okay, so one of the questions which would be a little related here is specifically about interview, right? So Pooja Parmar is asking, how can we measure candidates' personal behavior, working behavior, and aptitude in an interview? So I think aptitude is something different, but yes, categorically the personal behavior and working behavior in an interview, how do you do that? Is there a way to assess it?
Okay, so there is a big cultural thing when it comes to personal behavior, etc. And those things are best understood in the cultural context. I still remember I was talking to a CEO, and he had, he was looking at increasing his presence in the south. Okay, and he had a team already there, but what he did is he got a lot of aggressive north guys to become regional heads. In fact, he got both his regional heads for south from the north, and initially he got very negative feedback because they weren't used to such aggressive behavior from their managers. Okay, but later what happened is they they sort of got charged up also. and he really turned around their company. So what I'm trying to say is that yes, culture plays a big role, but that is why perhaps organization culture is beyond, should we say, locational culture or regional culture or society culture, right? What we are looking
Right.
for is people who fit my organization's culture. We are not here to measure, the person for the person's culture. We are here to measure, are you going to come into my organization and be able to fit into my parameters and work with all my guys? Agreed?
Very true. Very
No
true.
man is an island. So I'm here only to see, will you fit over here? And there are team cases, I mean, we working with a pharma major in Hyderabad, and they've had to, three of their five very senior hires in the last 6 months, they had to tell them to go, because they just didn't fit in with their culture. Okay. Now this is the thing that we're talking about. These are not people who are juniors in the industry, but the place they came from was very different, and they
Right.
were not able to work in the culture that is defined as my organization's culture, the G
Right.
culture, or the city culture, or
Correct.
I mean, like, each of these. So I think the focus has to be only to measure somebody again being, would that person be able to fit into my organization's culture? Perhaps sometimes if you're looking at regional roles, you might want to understand organization subculture also, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
But definitely that's all I want to measure.
Right. But does that mean that anybody who is any candidate who's fitting in terms of technical expertise and aptitude, but does not fit in from the cultural aspect, should the organization not hire that individual or the candidate?
Again, I think it becomes, a lot of it is a tactical decision, but definitely in the middle and the higher levels, you should not hire somebody who doesn't fit into the culture. It is okay at an operational level, maybe at a junior level. You could hire somebody because his role is more operational, especially, in maybe in technology, where you're really looking at skills. Currently we are short staffed for certain skills. Sometimes, organization even, for the technology teams or some of these specialized teams, they actually change the culture for just that sub team. They say in our tech
Right.
division, this is how it happens. These are millennials, this is how they work. These are techies, this is how they work. Yeah. But
Right. And
definitely, yeah.
sorry,
Yes,
sorry,
yes.
go ahead.
No, but definitely, if you're looking at middle and senior level hiring, we should stick to cultural this. It leads to a happy employee. Somewhere we have to also look at, the employee's happiness, whatever is his today reason to apply to this job, or his understanding of my culture and his ability to fit in. I have to be very sure that I'm guiding him right too, right?
Yes, and Jaspreet Ahluwalia has a question again with respect to senior level hiring. Since you're talking about it, she's asking at senior levels, of course, one psychometric test can't help in taking the decision of hiring. Because at senior level, people somehow do get that understanding of how to go about in answering a psychometric test. So, what else apart from psychometric test can the recruiters do to hire the right candidate for a senior position?
See, I think what she's saying is absolutely right. But I think the other thing that works is core values. We've done with the organization. So I told you we have 5 reports that come out. The first report is a general screening report. The second one is a core value assessment.
Mm-hmm.
The core value assessments, I think, are do a lot to tell you about the alignment between the individual's values and your organization's values. you know then of
Right.
course you have a competency, you have the aptitude and motivation of work. That also is a big eye opener. And what really motivates this individual to work? And sometimes, like she's mentioning, if the person goes through it thinking that they're going through a psychometry evaluation, they would definitely use all the intelligence to game it, right?
And
uh,
gamification is, I guess, another upcoming. aspect or of technology which is coming up. But yes, that's a different.
Yeah. So what I always suggest is, and I always feel is that go with a go with assessments as a pre-interview screening. Okay. They would then use the interview as an opportunity to understand. Like again, I will again because simply because I know my product well. In Pexi score report, we actually bring this out, saying that these are the factors which you might want to probe further in the interview. And some things which which some clusters which don't seem to make sense, perhaps. An individual contributor who's an amazing team player, right? A subject matter expert who's exceedingly creative but works in a particular type of technology. These things, I think, some clusters of things should cause you to investigate further.
Absolutely, I agree. Another question from Anu Agarwal, and she has some inhibitions when she asks, in the niche industry where the pool of candidates is very limited and of the same nature, they could be okay. Okay, and the same pool of candidates could be hunted at the by the competitor as well.
Absolutely.
Do you really feel that this type of hiring process, the analytics driven hiring process, could be very effective, and how?
Yeah, I'll tell you. If you like for tech, okay, today artificial intelligence, you send out an assessment link to the guys, they'll never take the test. They just do not take the test.
Very
Okay.
true.
You give them
Yes.
a project, they won't do it. And now you are under tremendous pressure. So what do? I found one of the effective things to do is to call them for the interview and then make them do a certain amount of the
Take the
test then
test.
and there. Because they are mentally understood that they are being considered. Okay. So if you're looking at specialized graphic user interface developers and all that, even some, okay, so some places, tests may not even work, like creative jobs. I find that that's some place where you have to just, I don't think assessments really work for those types of jobs. So, you've got to agree that everything has certain points where they won't work, and everything would have certain places where they'd work pretty well.
Hmm.
And, you've got to leverage where they work well.
Very true. Um, okay, there's another question. Human behavior comprises of multidimensional inputs into the cords of brain, which determines our behavior pattern to the situations. What percentage of it can artificial intelligence identify the true behavior? What percentage artificial intelligence can identify the true behavior?
See, artificial intelligence of course, it depends on how evolved, because, even artificial intelligence has levels of evolution. So you have the basic ones, okay, and then you have the more evolved ones. So it depends on what type of system you are using, right? But artificial intelligence, as the word says, it see, as a system, you might not want to let it run amok. Okay, so
Mhm.
perhaps where you start, you always start with the places where you have a lot of understanding of the pool. Okay, and then slowly your own confidence will increase, and you will start feeling that yes, I can also use it for this.
Right. I think artificial intelligence is always guided by the human intelligence to begin with. And
Yeah,
then, of
because
course,
we,
yeah.
we are talking about amplified intelligence. We are not trying to say that artificial intelligence is going to mimic human intelligence.
Right,
Okay,
right.
what it will do is it could work as a, like it will ensure that the data comes to you in a certain form. Because see, finally, the way artificial, see, okay, in hiring, see, the way it works is, if you don't, like in Tata Motor Finance, I was hired to create the business intelligence unit, okay, the analytics unit. Now, there was no precedence prior to me of people who would succeed in that environment in this type of job, right? Now, at that point, you could not have relied on artificial intelligence to recruit for a job role for which there was no parameter of success. But today, okay, after 10 years, you have enough and more people who have come into this role within the organization and have either succeeded or not succeeded. So today, artificial intelligence is available for even job roles around business intelligence, where you could work it out. For example, very senior hires. Okay, in banking, every unit is so very diverse. A risk guy cannot do the function of a ops guy, cannot do the function of a sales guy. It's very very diverse. Now, if you are a new NBFC, you might not feel so confident about using this for the set of very few senior management that you have. But in the course of 5 years, you would have built up substantial data which would tell you which type of people have succeeded in your senior management and which have not. Right?
Right.
So I think patience is required. I do not think it may never be an immediate plug and play for non-volume business.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Subhashini, for answering that. And
do you want to see how parameters come out in the reports, Kashish?
yes, that would be great. I'm sure the attendees would certainly love to see the end results, and then they would certainly get a better idea of the analytics.
So
In practicality.
will you put the camera onto my face or something? Because I'll just
Sure. So you just need to stop sharing your screen, and the camera will automatically be on you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, we can see you. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just 1 minute.
Absolutely.
But this has been very interesting.
We have very curious minds attending the webinar, and I'm glad
yes.
so many questions are coming up.
Yes, I agree. I will just share with you my screen in just a minute, and it will give you some understanding of.
Sure. In the meanwhile, can we take up a few more questions?
Sure.
If that is comfortable for you. So
I'm just starting
give
the
me...
screen
Okay.
share.
No worries. Yeah. Can we go full screen? Yeah. Can we go full screen on your screen?
Yeah. Is it not full screen? Is this okay?
It is not coming full screen, but I guess everything is visible, so it's good. It's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, for this graph, this report will take a look at a person's interest, temperament, behavior, education, and aptitude to tell the job fitment. Yeah. Now here, I'll take you quickly. Of course, everybody's gets a standardized resume, which is system generated. But what I was trying to tell you is that this is generally how intelligence systems nowadays work. These are the parameters. These are the 15 parameters. Decision making, creativity, openness, etc. And on the right side, you can see the benchmark, which is the average of the pool of similar candidates. That's how the benchmark gets created. So if you're looking at engineers with 2 to 5 years experience from tier 2 engineering colleges who have done computer engineering, this is the profile of the candidate, then this is the benchmark which comes for that. So you can then decide which of these parameters is the person actually doing well in.
Okay, and I'm sure these parameters would, the weightages that have been assigned would be can always be shuffled. They can always be customized.
So at the back end, as I was telling you, this is a big data driven system with analytics built in. So the algorithm changes automatically. As soon
Okay.
as you define the level, as I, again, if you're in an operational role, your parameters where you would be looked at would be, different. You would not be looked, your vision approach would not be that important, but your openness to learning would be important, your resourcefulness could be important. If you were in a banking system, morality would be important. If you were in a CFO's office, those types of roles, you would have morality, which would be very, very important. Okay. So these types of parameters, even in aptitude, so this is how the motivation works out. It actually says that this person is a more, doing the job for social acceptance, or for power, or for money. So it gives you very good insight into the candidate. And even for the aptitude, you can see very, very clearly that this is the benchmark of other people of a similar kind. Now if you want to set a benchmark which is only your organization, you say, listen, I'm in G and I want a benchmark of only other G people. Those can be customized, your benchmarks can be customized. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
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 And so these are the type of reports you have. I'll take you through a core value report, which again will give you some sense. These are our reports, so I'm sharing them without um, form. Like here for this company, these are the parameters of core value. Respect, trust, ownership, integrated teamwork. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
these core values are not individually constructed. It is not that the questions are as do you respect people? No. The questions are telling you more about the person, and if a person has a certain combination of values, of parameters, then he turns out to be high on respect or medium on respect.
Right.
That
And
era is gone when people used to ask, do you respect other people? That type of questioning, I think, is now it works well when you have a physical counselor who can also actually read how you're reacting to the question. you know so those questions which earlier used to require a physical counselor to be there to validate if you were actually being true or not true, nowadays the systems have taken it over, where they do not ask you these types of questions. They actually ask you the next level questions.
yeah, I think situational or typically response on a case scenario, and
Yes.
that is how the assessment is done.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Like here, the person under respect is gauged on these items: on situational judgment, on his self esteem, emotional stability, logical thinking, and his humility, because all these are taken to be parameters which are important if the person is going to show respect to others.
Okay.
Yes.
So, is it possible for us to take an example? And this is from Veer.
Yeah.
He wants to know if it is possible for us to take an example of how we set the benchmark. So, I understand you spoke about doing a data analysis of the data, or the aptitude score, or any score for that matter, of 30 people from the organization, and
Yes.
make it
From
as a
that you can.
benchmark. So, how to arrive at that benchmark? Is it an average? Is it any other? What
Yeah,
should I
so
say?
analytically, there are a couple of things which we need to do. Averages are very susceptible to outliers. If you might know this term, it means people who are either exceedingly good or
Mm-hmm.
exceedingly bad. Okay. And sometimes in a system generated score, what happens? Somebody misses a section. Okay, so that section he turns out to have either missed it, or for some reason the system didn't work, or whatever the reason, he had a very bad score there. So we generally remove these outliers, these ones which seem to be unusual circumstances, and then take the average. Another good way to do it is to take the median value. So median, if you remember, is your 50th percentile value. So if you could just sort your data out, and take the middle value, that's the median value.
Got it. Got it. So, yes. So anything else that you have to share? Or we do have some questions in waiting.
Yes, yes, yes. Please, let's continue with the questions.
Okay. So, we have a very interesting question by Prabodh Sirur, and he asks, what are the quantifiable benefits from analytics in recruitment for, say, one candidate?
Okay, so the recruitment of one candidate, I think first thing is the funnel itself. If you generally look at 10 people to come down to one recruitment, I don't know what is the ratio in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing you will find is that now you can look at 3 people in a much more significant way and come out with one recruitment. Okay, so the
Yeah.
ratio of the candidates that you interview drastically reduces. Okay. The second thing that we see is that the peripheral costs reduce. So that means all the L&D cost, etc., would reduce because your fitment would be much better. Your engagement, your person sticking around in the organization for longer. All of these would happen because you would have done a good fitment at the point of recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think these two, and then the cost benefit would also be much higher. So if today you need 2 people to screen the resumes, you would need one. Okay, because you can look at benchmarks and just decide on the basis of the benchmarks. You don't really need to go through every resume.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
So, another question by Srinath Guru Raja Rao, and he wants to know the latest technologies in people analytics or behavior mapping technologies.
See, the latest that I have seen a few very nice ones which are on biometrics. But biometrics, etc., are slightly expensive. Though they are used extensively for fraud catching, etc. So they are very good indicators of certain exceptional circumstances. Okay. Then there is fingerprint techniques that people have. Of course, there is social media techniques, but till now, I have found that the preference, just because of the cost benefit analysis that exists, is still, I think you can do a very good job by looking at the multiple choice question type of analytics that you get.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Because
Um,
nowadays even these multiple choice questions, they auto adjust themselves depending on your last answer, accuracy of the latest answers, etc. So I think even that technology has evolved quite some, and it's very effective.
yeah, they have some conditional algorithms built in wherein a completely different set of questions would start popping up based on your last answer. So, yes, the technology
And
has really evolved quite a bit.
no, we
Yeah.
just now did a campus recruitment drive. Now, no 2 people got the same set of questions in the same sequence. Definitely not, but not
Hmm.
even like, we could say that, we were able to give everybody a different sequence of questions.
Oh, great, great. Um, okay, so can we implement succession planning for salespeople using analytics? A brief outline would help, is what Lokesh needs.
Absolutely. See, Lokesh, I'll tell you again. This is something which I can demonstrate to you on my system also. One of the best things is that if suppose somebody takes a psycho, so like our system, it will shut down the assessment for 6 months. Okay, after your last psychometric, so that it's not that every time you come and you decide you're going to look at it in a different way. What happens is, if you have a candidate who's say at an assistant manager and you're looking at a manager position, he's done his psychometry 2 months back. What you can do is you can just cross reference him against the job profile of the manager, and it will tell you how his PEXI score will shift. Okay, so if he is at a 500 PEXI score for his current job, and if he is at a 500 550 PEXI score for the manager job, you know that he's in a position to do a good job at the managerial level. Maybe he's not so much of he's actually outgrown his current role. Yeah. So definitely you can use analytics and scoring models like Pexi Score. If you make an in-house scoring algorithm for yourself also, you can definitely use it for succession planning. It helps you cross-reference candidates across different job roles and see where the best fitment would exist.
Sure. Thank you, Subhashini, for answering that. Just one final question before we close the Q&A session.
Okay.
Is from Sweta Bidwai, who wants to know which behavioral tool is best to use if you really want people to be hired only if they are culturally fit. So, like probably a psychometric or something that she's asking, a behavioral tool.
Absolutely. See, your culture fitment tools, like I told you, right, your core value tools. So, any of the core value tools that you have should enable you to get this type of a fitment. No, the core value of a person does not really significantly change. And if it is very significantly different, it's not something he can pretend for some time, but it's not something which he can, pretend for too long, right? It will cause discrepancies. So it is best to go for any tool which measures the core value fitment.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we are done with the questions, and if you have some more, if you want to go ahead with the current report, we can do that. Or
Yeah, just 1 minute. Perhaps I can show you some of the places where analytics is currently being used in human resources, and just take a look at it, and let's have your thoughts on that. So I'm just going to share on the screen a couple of places where we are seeing a lot of analytics requests coming.
right, apart from hiring, is that?
Yes,
Okay.
apart from hiring. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest parts that we get a lot of requests for is in the area of attrition management. Okay. So can you see my slide?
I can.
Okay, great. So we find that generally when we are solving problems, one great way to do it is to actually have some sort of a checklist process, so that all of us are on the same page as we solve the problem. But these are the common problem statements we are seeing, especially coming up. Attrition trends prediction: how much, how many, month on month. Okay, what are the significant segments from which my attrition is coming? Are there some locations, designations, some time spent in the organization? So just for your information, we've actually done a study where we realized that people are most likely to try it in their third year and their seventh year in an organization. They start looking for jobs around that time, generally. Now, leading
Okay.
indicators of attrition: what are the warning indicators or the signs of disengagement for your organization? So, I remember looking at something at Manipal Hospital, and they were having a problem with their nurses. And when we did an analysis of the engagement survey, we found that most of the nursing division had this misconception that they weren't being paid adequately. Okay. It wasn't true, because these guys, Manipal Hospital, had improved their pay scale to be at 70th percentile of the industry. So, but somewhere this change had not trickled down, or the perception of change had not trickled down. So they designed a separate corporate communication, which enabled the company to sort of set this the minds of their nursing staff at rest. Then we call to do in defend, grow, and exit matrix. So which attritions are acceptable versus which are critical? Which are the ones for which we should already take some measures, and what could these measures be? One of the measures is a probability of attrition scorecard, where we can figure out who is most likely to attrit in the next 3 months or the 6 months. Because attrition is such a sensitive thing. After somebody has put in his papers, it's virtually impossible to retain in most cases, because he's
Yes.
got the buy-in of his family, he's got the buy-in of his significant people in his life. He has mentally decided that this is not the place for me. Yeah. For him to even go back on that decision is a loss of face. Okay. And
True. Yeah.
yeah, these are the type of models, etc., that we build. um, you know um, Sometimes an overall forecasting of the number of people to hire or the number who will attrit does not give us a good understanding of how is it going to really be. What really you need to do is to break it down and actually do the forecast by units. So there's an ITS major, and their HR had a particular problem. They had forecasted very correctly that there would be so many hirings, but they were unable to forecast. But at the end of the year, they found the cost they had forecasted was, really turned out to be nearly double the cost. They were very upset. They're like, how can the numbers be the same? But then when we looked at it, we realized that most of the hiring had been from the more expensive divisions, which were the newer divisions. You know, so somewhere taking an average of the whole company and working may not help. Okay. Then things like this, where you can actually predict when the forecast would fail. It would tell you that which are the months which were exceptional, where you had exceptional issues. Okay. um, Creating MISs for, see, every organization is constantly evolving, and in this organization over 2 years we found that some of the data was similar, but maybe some of the data was not. So how do you structure the data so that going forward you get a very very good feel of what's happening in the organization? Okay. So this was the type of dashboard and a tool which we implemented over there, which would automatically update every month. Okay. Then this is an example of a probability of attrition scoring model, which used to cluster out every month. It used to tell which are the people likely to leave in the next 90 days. Now that gave HR a heads up to decide, should we do something to retain these guys? So some of them, they used to ask their managers to counsel because they wanted to retain. They used to figure out if they asked for a raise, would they agree to it or not. And some, they thought, no, at this current rate, we are not going to agree to it. Okay. So, like at City, what used to happen is a lot of the people would not want to grow out of their senior manager roles, because at AVP levels you used to end up doing team management, and most of them were analytics resources. They liked being subject matter experts. So it became a big issue, and this was the type of scoring model we used to run and see, and we used to counsel them, listen, if you're not wanting to move to the next level, you will have to leave, because you're going to become exorbitantly costly at this level. So it just ensures that the employee experience in the organization is good.
Thank you, Subhashini. That was indeed a very valuable input, and this time we really exceeded our time by 30 minutes, and I'm sure this was really very interesting for all the attendees who have been with us on this learning journey. So, just to quickly wrap it up for anybody who's joined it up later, I would like to. I would like to just sum it up for everyone that I think recruitment quality is majorly affected by predictive analytics. And by combining recruitment processes, so I'm just trying to juggle up the screen here. And so I think overall, just to sum it up for everyone, the entire recruitment process is undergoing a sea change right now, and the rules are changing. So there's a critical need to upskill the talent acquisition function. So with talent analytics and artificial intelligence, recruiters will be able to will actually be able to make a sea change in the way recruitment is done. They'll be able to work faster and have necessary skills to leverage the insights of analytics. So the cognitive systems will be able to participate in and even lead the effort in common talent acquisition functions, be it sourcing, recruiting, and interviewing. The hiring models will now be revamped with smarter processes, as you indicated. The analytics would be really helpful in revamping those processes and the constant assessment of incoming data. So my overall, I think, question right now is: are we as human resource professionals really ready to grab this opportunity to create the future? I think we need to focus a little more on analytics and see how we are able to capture more knowledge, put it into the experience, and create an area of expertise for ourselves and help the organizations in the long run. So, a final word of thanks to the entire core HRIR team, lead of Veer, Bhanu, Jyoti, Anu, and Kirti. Special thanks to many more people behind the scene for always encouraging and supporting us all the time. And another very special thanks to Subhashini, the insights that we got, the knowledge that she shared, and the expertise that we got a chance to look into will certainly change the way we work, specifically in the talent acquisition domain. So thanks a lot, Subhashini, for sparing your valuable time on a weekend.
Thank you. My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
Yes.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a